Okay, we are now recording. Let me screen share with you so you can see my screen. And you can also follow along with the Nearpod as we're going along here. So, okay. It is today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about crime. Okay. It's pretty good. We do get into somewhat, let me just say, topics that are maybe uncomfortable, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just the nature of criminal justice. So we are going to talk about those. Just so you're aware, this session is going to be recorded for viewing later for those that couldn't make it. And classroom expectation is follow along with the Nearpod lesson. Use chat tools respectfully and appropriately. As I said, as we're kind of talking about some of those topics that are maybe uncomfortable, we got to be mindful of everybody around us. Respond to questions, instructions the first time. Okay. All right. Before I get into the lesson objective, let me just jump into the course real quick. Remember, I post the courses or the recording to the announcement page so you guys can get it each time. If you go to the plan where we're at today, we should have done our Unit 1 quiz. You can redo that as many times as you need to get the desired score that you'd like. We've got live classes every Thursday, as you see coming up here. And this next assignment's going to be due, I put it on Wednesday. I think I usually do about a week. So that your exit ticket is to do the lesson 2 quiz that's due. So that's what you're going to be doing at the end of there. That is found under the crime section of here. I will post the recording here as well, but your quiz is right here. As you click it, mine's a little bit different. You get a preview. You can start the quiz, and this is what it will look like. Okay, so 6 questions right there. So nothing too bad. So given a quiz in the OLS, students will accurately answer multiple choice questions about crime awareness with 80% accuracy across one try. So that's what we're looking at doing. Okay, so let's talk first a little bit about the reporting system of uniform crime reporting system. This began in the FBI, where we started taking statistics and using kind of electronic things to be able to see how many cases are in an area. And now we kind of know where maybe I would say hot pockets are for crime, right? Or where crime's most reported. And some areas, yeah, I mean that. And if you think about it, if crime is happening in that area more often, police are probably going to be more present in that area. Okay. Or you should have availability of police more in that area. So as we're kind of going through that, think that's why you're not necessarily targeting a specific group, but you're seeing where the different areas are as we're using analytical data. Let's watch this video about what is crime, and I think it has kind of an interesting perspective, and will lead us into some discussions here. So here we go.
Hi there, this is Margit from...
All right, are you guys able to hear that? Yeah, okay, here we go.
From criminologyweb.com. And in this video, I'll take on the question, what is crime? When talking about crime, many people think about famous cases, like the assault at Rodney King in the US, or the mafia in Italy, or perhaps the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi in India. But crime isn't restricted to the famous cases or even what we think of as serious cases. Crime includes violence, robberies, rape, and drug wars, but also stealing at work, corruption, corporate fraud, and tax violations. But what else is crime and what is it not? These seem like questions with obvious answers, but when you start looking into these questions, it turns out that it's not always so easy to say what is a crime and what is not a crime. What about, for example, when one hears the neighbor screaming or potentially beating his or her family? Or when companies pollute the air with their toxic substances? Of course, there is the law, which determines what is legal and what is illegal. But the thing is that the contents of the law vary depending on time and legal system. So let's look at a couple of examples of how the law varies by time. One example is domestic violence. It used to be tolerated, and in some places it still is, when a man or a woman beats his or her partner and kids. Nowadays, in many countries, that is considered to be problematic, to say the least. As another example, in 1784 in Prussia, which is the forerunner of modern-day Germany, only much larger, there was a law that mothers were not allowed to take their under 2-year-old children into their beds. That idea has changed quite a bit in many places. It also used to be a crime in different parts of the world to work on a Sunday, and maybe it still is in some areas. So these are some examples of how the law varies by time. The law also varies by legal system. An example of this is prostitution. In some countries, prostitution is illegal. In other countries, prostitution is legal. And in still other countries, it is a criminal offense to buy sexual services, meaning to be a client of a prostitute. So what does that say about prostitution? Is it a crime or is it not a crime? Another example is the consumption of cannabis. Also in this area, there are quite different rules and laws. In some countries, the possession of small quantities of cannabis is legal, and in other countries, it's not. But even for a crime like murder, one cannot say that this is always and everywhere regarded to be an offense and treated that way. In some places, you can murder certain people without being punished for it. An example of that is honor killings, which can be committed while the police are looking away in some places. Or war. In war, there are different rules, and sometimes things are allowed that are not allowed otherwise. In many cases, when you talk about crime with other people, you can probably get by when you use the current legal definition of crime in the area where you live. But especially when talking about crime across time and place, one should be aware that the definition of crime is a product of society, culture, and of time, and so that it can change. For more fascinating criminology and criminal justice stuff, subscribe to this channel and turn on the alarm bell, or go to criminologyweb.com and find new posts there every week.
All right. So hopefully you found that fairly interesting. Okay. And really crime is kind of a little bit about culture, about what we think is acceptable and stuff. So crime is subjective. Okay. That means it's determined kind of almost by the individual and is based upon where you live. What are some crimes that you disagree with? Yeah, so I want you to put in the chat here. What are some crimes that you possibly disagree with? And these are going to be subjective, so some people may disagree with you, but that's okay. Put up there what you think. I think I might put one. I'm going to put jaywalking. Okay, criminalized abortion. Okay. I think jaywalking is J-A-Y, but I just put jaywalking. Okay. What other ones? Give you some time to think for a second here. Come on, you got a bunch of you. If you're not on the Nearpod, put on the chat. Okay, stealing baby stuff from stores. Stealing is really bad, but some things are seriously needed. Okay. All right. Loitering. Okay, I like it. What about fraud? So you disagree with fraud? You should be able to do fraud. I don't know if I agree with that. That I disagree with fraud. Not walking the road without a cross. Yeah, so jaywalking. Okay. All right. What about some of these social ones that are changing over time, such as the consumption and selling of marijuana, right? Now, I'm not saying like I have a position on it or anything that I'm trying to push, but what I'm saying is that is something that somebody in there disagrees with. Some people disagree with and they think it should be legalized. Okay. Some people think that, let's see here. So one of the things they mentioned as well is prostitution. Okay. Another thing that they mentioned in the video was you can't even think of one. So they think all the laws are good. Okay. No problem. If you can't think of one, that's fine. Another one is if you've heard, and that's not around here, but it's in other places in the world, what's called honor killings. Okay. So if you disrespect your family, your parents could basically kill their child because they disrespected them, right? In some cultures, that is culturally acceptable. Okay. All right. Honor killings. Okay, good. All right, so let's kind of move on here. So the FBI, as they're kind of doing things down, I feel like there's major crimes, okay? And so these are the major crimes that they kind of report and they feel that are serious and are felonies, okay? First degree felonies. And so they are murder, which criminal homicide, okay? Robbery, forcible rape, aggravated assault, burglary, motor vehicle theft, larceny theft, and arson. Okay. So those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ones that are tracked by the FBI. And you can actually go to like their website and be able to kind of see that. What's the sixth one? Larceny theft. Or the seventh, arson. Arson is setting fire to things. So good question, Ali. So it would be consensual versus, well, forcible means violence, violent. If that hopefully answers your question there.
The difference between the two would be violent rape, so completely non-consensual, or let's say it's two consenting people, a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old, and the 17-year-old's parents don't like said 18-year-old. The parents can press charges against the 18-year-old and it can go on their permanent record even if it was consensual.
Correct. Thank you for that. And that's called statutory rape. So very good. Thank you for that explanation. That's very, very insightful. Okay. All right. So we are going to go over which one of them are. So maybe I should have done that. So criminal homicide is the willful non-neglect killing of one human person by another. So there's premeditated, meditated murder, right? The other one is so like there could be a homicide, right? But it is like a vehicular homicide, right? Where they didn't possibly mean to kill someone, but you accidentally did, right? And so there's things that neglect comes into play, involuntary manslaughter. Thank you. Words are all coming back to me. Vehicular manslaughter. So that there's a different degrees, right? And so criminal homicide would be the higher level there. So carnal knowledge of a female forcibly and against her will. Okay. And so that would be forcible. And we kind of distinguished the two already just before that. Yeah, I think it could be either gender. That's just what the slide said when we were on there. So yeah, that's another question, Malia. That one's a kind of a gray area, right? Because there are places that kind of culturally accept that, right? So I don't know. I don't know if you can call that homicide or not, but good question. The problem is what we're talking about, guys, is there's a lot of like gray area, and it's all about culturally what is acceptable, you know? For example, and I told you these topics are going to kind of be in these areas of you may feel uncomfortable, but I'm going to bring it up anyways because it kind of shows just a point, right? So, for example, like abortion, some areas, like in the United States, it's more acceptable than others, right? And it's hard to have. It all depends a lot on cultural factors of where we're living in. So it's kind of an interesting subject of crime, of how this is. Yeah, so there's a whole thing going on in Texas right now about having it completely banned. There has been Supreme Court legislation on this before, and they've taken up other cases that may possibly overturn it. So it's always a constant kind of motion of what the climate is like, the culture climate is like this time, depending on what is okay and what's not okay, right? And it's kind of hard for some of these ones, right? Because it goes into morals, and it's hard to legislate, I think, morals when everybody has different kind of set of morals and standards that they believe in. So okay, so let's move on just real quick to robbery. So it's a taking or attempting to take anything of value from the care, custody, or control of another person by force or the threat of violence, okay, and putting a person in fear. So, having some type of weapon on you, or not even having a weapon on you, but saying that, like some people have entered a bank and have a note saying this, you have a bomb. I have a bomb in here or something like that. Give me your money. That would be all considered robbery because it'd be the fear of that. Okay, aggravated assault is the unlawful attack by one person upon another for the purpose of inflicting severe or aggravated bodily injury. So the thing is, inflicting severe or aggravated bodily injury, you say, kind of what does that look like? Now this is where you kind of got to be careful, like kids, like teenagers, right? Having fights in school and stuff like that. They could get in trouble for assault, right? They could get charged for assault. But if something were to happen, right, that really caused really severe injury or aggravated bodily injury, it could be aggregated assault, right? So it's just not smart. I mean, let's work things out through our words rather than our fists. Okay, burglary is the unlawful entry of a structure to commit a felony or theft. So, for example, you're not necessarily, and probably this picture is not the best example, but it was funny, that I'm going into a structure not necessarily to harm somebody or put somebody in fear to give me something, but I am going in to try to get something of value or commit some type of thing that you're not supposed to. Okay, so that's burglary. So it's different than robbery. Okay, larson theft is the unlawful taking, carrying, leading, or riding away of property from the possession or constructive possession of another. Okay, so being able to maybe swindle somebody, possibly. I mean, that kind of makes sense. In one of my other classes, it's called personal finance, we talk about white collar crime. And anyways, it talks about, we watch a little video about how people try to get something from somebody else, how to steal it away from them, kind of maybe without them knowing, that kind of stuff. That would be considered the larceny or theft. Motor vehicle theft is the theft or attempt theft of a motor vehicle. That's pretty simple there. All right. And then arson is the willful or malicious burning or attempt to burn with or without intent to defraud of a dwelling or house, public building, motor vehicle or aircraft, personal property, or something else, right? So it could be for like vengeance, right? That could be something for arson. But what people used to do before they kind of caught on, right, is, for example, my neighbor's house. Let's say that I went and got an insurance policy out on my neighbor's house, and then I would go and I would somehow cause a fire to start in their house and burn it down. And then the insurance company would pay me. Or if I'm underwater, right, or something like that, I burn my own house. So all of that would be considered like arson, burning things to get some type of money or to get back at somebody for vengeance. Okay, we're going to watch another video about technology today. As we kind of talked a little bit, we're talking about crime and analytics, being able to guide police officers of kind of maybe where they need to be, where they need to look for, and stuff like that. And they're really kind of looking at those kind of main crimes, but there are other crimes underneath that too. And so there's ways that they're kind of catching people. All right, so there's some things in the chat. Oh, destroying evidence. Yeah, that would be considered as well. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Let's watch about some way technology is now helping police officers and how they're using the analytics and all that.
High technology help police solve crimes in movies and on TV all the time. But that same technology is being used right here, right now, to catch criminals.
And tonight, police are showing off the tools they used to catch a man accused of attempted murder. News Channel 5's Jason Hackett is live in Riviera Beach with our story. Jason.
Well, Michael and Shannon, Jermaine Nellums was arrested on Wednesday and charged with many crimes. His capture was one part just good old-fashioned police work, but the other part of it is what you see behind me, the present and the future of policing.
When it comes to crime, police will always be the first line of defense, but it never hurts to have some backup.
I'm a resource to the officers and to investigation as a whole.
The resources Officer Osel Harrison provides are why Jermaine Nellums is sitting behind bars tonight, facing several serious charges. Riviera Beach police believe Nellums shot a man near Silver Beach Road and Avenue R on December 4th. The path to catching him began here at headquarters in an area dubbed Sky One, starting with the shot spotter system.
It triangulates the audio from the sound of a gunshot.
What you're hearing are the 12 rounds Nellums allegedly fired at his victim that night. The victim was able to give police a description of the vehicle he was in, and that's when the city's real-time surveillance system came into play. It spotted a truck matching the description in the area minutes before the shooting.
We were able to piece together the varying points from entry to exit as far as how the truck traveled throughout our city.
The department's license plate reader system furthered the investigation. The reader was able to scan the plate on the truck Nellums was driving, leading them to the rental company he got it from, leading them to the alleged shooter. It sounds like the future, but for this department, it's the present.
I kind of liken it to when DNA was discovered. You can't get away from it. You cannot get away from our technology.
The department's message to criminals: enter Riviera Beach at your own risk.
We are letting you know we are going to aggressively pursue criminal behavior.
You will be apprehended, and we have the resources that can tie in to make that arrest possible.
Now, Riviera Beach was actually awarded for having one of the most technologically advanced police departments here in the state of Florida. And as impressive as this entire thing behind me is, they want to expand it even further and have more of this technology here in the city in the next 5 years.
So, maybe Big Brother's always watching, right? Okay, so why don't we list on here real quick on the Nearpod, besides technology, what other ways do police use to catch criminals? Witnesses, I like that. That's a good one. What other ways do police use? Okay, DNA. Okay, both of those were spoke about that. That's really good. DNA was really big. Okay, evidence left at the scene. Yep, evidence, different evidence. If there are any cameras in the area, very good. Cameras, good. Evidence. Okay, I know it's kind of outdated, I guess, with DNA and everything, but fingerprinting, right? And there's a lot just talking to people, like going door to door. I mean, there's a lot that they can do. So, I mean, all I'm saying really is crime doesn't pay, right? CTE footage, DNA, fingerprints. Also, you can identify people by their earlobes. All right. Okay. Very good. Media. Yeah, that's something they do. You know, like we kind of think it's interesting. One of the things I growing up, they'd always do the America's Most Wanted. That's what it was called. That was in conjunction with the police to say, hey, if you see anybody that looks like this guy, and here's all the bad stuff they did, and people are always interested in, I mean, as humans, we kind of like drama a little bit, right? That if you see somebody that looks like that person, please report it so then we can go and arrest that guy. So media, that's a good one. I like whoever put that one. That's great. Okay, moving on. Okay, so data collection. Oh yeah, so somebody put an ad for kidnaps and disappearances. Exactly, right? Being able to track it down, especially today's, everybody's filming stuff or have pictures. You know, like they can pull communication things from like people's cell phones and stuff after a while and stuff like that. Now, people are worried about privacy issues and stuff like that. So there's kind of a balance we got to say in here, right? Like how much are we willing to give up of our privacy to be safe, or we're willing to give to investigations. So but there's always this data collection that's going on with all of these kind of things that are in place. Okay, so data collection. We're going to be talking a little bit more. So we talked about what we did to the FBI, which is federally, like at a national level, but at the state level, we have state statistics that we'll do, and that goes to Utah's Bureau of Criminal Identification. The U.S. crime rate is a comparison of the total crimes committed to the total population divided by 100,000 people. Utah actually does a comparison lower because our population is lower to every 100 or every 1,000 people. Okay, some demographics that they pull when they do like arrest people or bring people in, that kind of stuff, is they usually get their age, their sex or gender, race, and if they are adult or juvenile. So they can look at trends to kind of see where they are. Because another part of the crime aspect of thing is crime prevention, right? And so if we can say, hey, these are at-risk demographics, maybe we can go in. I mean, there's a lot of reason why they have school resource officers in the schools. It's so they can maybe build a good rapport with the students. You also have the DARE officers that, against, drugs and stuff like that. And they try to bring them in to get exposure and have good relationships with the general public. So it's kind of interesting. Here's the clearance rates. So if you were to commit a murder, and I think these statistics are probably about 10 years old. So it's a little bit. So if you commit a murder, you're probably 63.6% that you're going to be convicted. Okay. And that you're not going to get off on some technicality. Okay. Forcible rape, 40%. Aggravated assault, 54%. As I said, yeah. Robbery, 26%, burglary, 12%, auto theft is 12%, but larceny theft is 19%. So you may get away with auto theft, or burglary is like the most thing you would get away with, right? But if you do some of these other ones, it's more than likely that you're going to, well, it doesn't necessarily mean you don't get caught, it means you get off, right? So clearance rate is convicted. Okay. There's other systems that they're reporting to, the National Incident-Based Reporting System. There's also collects data for Part 1 crimes and 46 others. So Part 1 were the first ones we talked to you about. Okay. So here is a problem with collecting data and crimes and stuff like that. Not all crimes are reported. I want you to take a second and think, why do you think this is? Why do you not think all crimes are reported? Yeah, they're interesting statistics, aren't they? Okay, I don't know. Threats, okay. Fear of not being believed, good. Some people are afraid of the police, right? People are scared to, or they're worried the police won't do anything. Okay, fear, good. Somebody that did something wrong, could, like, let's say my brother did something wrong. Do I want my brother to go to prison? Of course I don't, right? So I might not say anything, right? Some are not reported because the person gets away with it. Yet people are afraid to report. Not all are known about. Judgment, that's a good one you got to think of. Judgment, like if something happened to you and you were a victim, you probably don't want people to know that something happened to you, right? I mean, it wouldn't be fun. Okay, people might be scared that they might be framed, even though they didn't do it. Yeah, I mean, if you did something, like if something was going on, so this happens quite a bit. You see illegal activity going on, like in a company you're working for. You might lose your job. They may have a lot of money. They may discredit you. They may make it look like that it was you that did it. So there's a lot of things that go unreported because depending on what it is, if you report something, when a person that did the something could be after you next. Yep. Yeah, things are often traumatizing. Cops are less likely to believe that you have a history of mental health issues. Yeah. Judging the victim. Very good. Worried about getting involved. Associations. Yeah. I mean, all of those are kind of valid things, okay, of why people do not report things, okay? Okay, there are things like trends of why things go up and down. For example, there may be more, if there's more police out there, you're probably going to see more crimes because they're able to find out about more crimes, right? There's actually more crimes that happen in the summertime because people are more out and about, right? And not behind closed doors. But it doesn't mean the crime, so the reporting of the crime goes up and down, not necessarily the crime goes up and down. Okay, we're going to kind of skip some of this because we're running out of time. Okay, let's ask some questions. If you could create 2 new laws, what would they be? Is there anything that you feel that needs to be addressed, that maybe is not being addressed? This one's kind of hard. Or even one law, that's fine. Be put in jail or... Okay, so false. Yeah, so somebody that knows something that is not true but does it anyways, right? That's something as well that really discredits. I mean, it's kind of like the boy cried wolf, right? If somebody goes and says, this person did something to me, right? And they find out that they're lying about it because they maybe want to get back at somebody or they want the attention or something like that. That's a huge issue because not only is that person discredited, but somebody that's actually claiming it's and that's really actually true becomes then discredited because of what other people are doing. Yeah. You can. Okay. I didn't necessarily know that, so that's very good. Conservation therapy and wilderness camps should be illegal, and sex offenders should get longer sentences. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think you meant like wilderness programs. Yeah, it's hard because that helps some people and that doesn't. And they should get longer sentences. Yeah, I don't know. There is some things that are set in laws that they're actually mandatory sentencing for some things. Like the legislators have actually came in and said, hey, if you did this crime, you're going to serve at least this amount of time. So that's something they somewhat do, right? I'm not necessarily sure on that subject matter. Okay. It's complicated, yeah. Okay, potentially hurting like animals. Okay. That's very strong statement there, right? Okay. Lying about a person. Okay. the prison system. Yeah, we're going to talk about the prison system and coming things. The issues in criminal justice and stuff like that are just so deep. And there's a lot that has been done that we done wrong. There's a lot we've learned from. And so all we can do is move on for some stuff. Okay, this one we talked about eliminating stuff, but I feel like you've already talked about eliminating different laws. So let me. Okay, here's some interesting statistics about Utah, because I'd like to narrow down on Utah to talk about some statistics. So the average recovery rate of a stolen property in Utah is 26%. So if you get something stolen, you're probably not going to get it back. Okay. Firearms were actually used in 37% of reported homicides, which is very interesting. So if it's only 35%, that means the rest of them are some other type of homicide. 22% of homicides were domestic. Okay, husband and wife. 67 were non-domestic, and 12% were 12% the relationship was unknown. So more than likely, that's why they always say that more than likely, if there's a homicide, the person killed the other person. Homicide is murder. Good question. Okay. I thought it'd kind of be higher too, but it doesn't sound like it. But knowing the person, kind of interesting. I guess I could have took that slide out. All right. Here are some other things. Maybe take a second to kind of look at those if you want. Different types of calls on here that the officers get: burglary in process, civic disorder, traffic stops, attempting other arrests, suspicious person, all others, handling prisoners, disruption calls. Okay, it's interesting. Most of the call things happen at night, so 8 to 12 a.m. 74% of the calls are there. The next highest is actually the after midnight to 4 a.m. And then you have a 4 to 8 p.m. During the day, it seems not as okay. Different weapons of what they use in assaults. Yeah, some of it I feel like when you're looking at the data, it's a little bit of common sense, but it's different. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. On average, an index crime is reported every 5.4 minutes in Utah. So there's one homicide every 7.8 days, and this is a little bit old data. One rape every 9.6, one aggravated assault 2.7 hours, right? So people are hurting people. 8 robberies, or one robbery every 8 hours. That's a little crazy. 38 minutes for a burglary. Larceny every 1.3 days. Arson seems high. That's kind of crazy to me. Motor vehicle theft only 1.3 hours. So you're more than likely a theft. Look at that. Yeah, the arson one does surprise me. Okay. Well, that leads me to the end of everything here. So your assignment today, do lesson 2 quiz. It's just about basically these main things that we talked about, what the definition is of them. Okay. So that is your assignment. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stop the recording here and I'll upload it to the OLS. And I know some people had some questions, so you can stay after and ask me those. Thanks, everybody.